Let's play BioBlitz, a quiz game show where you'll test your knowledge of biology. I'll present each question and you try to answer. For every correct response, you'll earn points. If you need help or want to ask a question, just let me know. Here's how the game will work. 1. I'll ask a question. 2. You respond with an answer, A, B, C, D, or E. 3. I'll tell you if your answer is correct or not. If not, I'll provide the correct answer. 4. We'll keep track of your points. Ready to start? Here's your first question. Question 1. All the organisms on your campus make up A, an ecosystem, B, a community, C, a population, D, an experimental group, E, a taxonomic domain. What's your answer? Question 1. All the organisms on your campus make up. Your answer, B, a community. Correct. A community is a group of different species that live together in the same area. Well done. You earn 1 point. Current score, 1 point. Let's move on to the next question. Question 2. Which of the following is a correct sequence of levels in life's hierarchy proceeding downward from an individual animal? A brain, organ system, nerve cell, nervous tissue. B, organ system, population of cells, nervous tissue, brain. C, organism, organ system, tissue, cell, organ. D, nervous system, brain, nervous tissue, nerve cell. E, organ system, tissue, molecule, cell. What's your answer? Question 2. Which of the following is a correct sequence of levels in life's hierarchy proceeding downward from an individual animal? Your answer, E, organ system, tissue, molecule, cell. Not quite. The correct sequence should start with organ system and proceed downward to smaller units. While organ system and tissue are in the correct order, molecule is too small and out of place in this sequence, and cell should come before tissue. The correct sequence should be organ system, tissue, cell, molecule. The correct answer is D, nervous system, brain, nervous tissue, nerve cell, as it correctly shows a progression from a larger system, nervous system, to a specific organ, brain, then to tissue, nervous tissue, and finally to a cell, nerve cell. Correct answer explanation. Nervous system is the broadest level, organ system. Our brain is an organ within that system. Nervous tissue is the tissue type that makes up the brain. Nerve cell is a specific cell type within nervous tissue. You earn 0 points for this question. Current score, 1 point. Let's move on to the next question. Question 3. Which of the following is not an observation or inference on which Darwin's theory of natural selection is based? A poorly adapted individuals never produce offspring. B. There is heritable variation among individuals. C. Because of overproduction of offspring, there is competition for limited resources. D. Individuals whose inherited characteristics best fit them to the environment will generally produce more offspring. E. A population can become adapted to its environment. What's your answer? Your answer, C. Because of overproduction of offspring, there is competition for limited resources. Not quite. This statement is actually a key component of Darwin's theory of natural selection. Darwin observed that species produce more offspring than can survive, leading to competition for resources. The correct answer is, a poorly adapted individuals never produce offspring. This statement is too absolute and not entirely accurate. Darwin's theory states that individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to reproduce, but it doesn't say that poorly adapted individuals never reproduce at all. You earn 0 points for this question. Current score, 1 point. Let's move on to the next question. Question 4. Systems biology is mainly an attempt to A. Understand the integration of all levels of biological organization from molecules to the biosphere. B. Simplify complex problems by reducing the system into smaller, less complex units. C. Model one level of biological organization based on an understanding of the lower levels of organization. D. Provide a systematic method for interpretation of large amounts of biological data. E. Speed up the technological application of scientific knowledge. Your answer. A. Understand the integration of all levels of biological organization from molecules to the biosphere. Correct. Systems biology aims to understand how biological systems interact and function as a whole, from molecules to entire organisms and ecosystems. Well done. You earn 1 point. Current score, 2 points. Question 5. Protists and bacteria are grouped into different domains because A. Protists eat bacteria. B. Bacteria are not made of cells. C. Bacterial cells lack a nucleus. D. Bacteria decompose protists. E. Protists are photosynthetic. What's your answer? Your answer: C. Bacterial cells lack a nucleus. Correct. Bacteria are prokaryotic cells that lack a true nucleus, whereas protists are eukaryotic cells that have a nucleus. This fundamental difference in cell structure is one reason they are classified into different domains, bacteria and eukarya. Well done, you earn 1 point. Current score, 3 points. Let's move on to the next question. Question 6. Which of the following best demonstrates the unity among all organisms? A matching DNA nucleotide sequences B descent with modification. C. The structure and function of DNA. D. Natural selection. E. Emergent properties. What's your answer? Your answer: C. The structure and function of DNA. Correct. The fact that all living organisms use DNA, or RNA in some viruses, as their genetic material, with a nearly universal genetic code and similar structure, demonstrates a fundamental unity among all life forms. This shared molecular basis of inheritance highlights the common ancestry of life on Earth. Well done. You earn 1 point. Current score, 4 points. Let's move on to the next question. Question 7. Which of the following is an example of qualitative data? A. The temperature decreased from 20 degrees to 15 degrees. B. The plant's height is 25 centimeters. C. The fish swam in a zigzag motion. D. The 6 pairs of robins hatched an average of 3 chicks. E. The contents of the stomach are mixed every 20 seconds. What's your answer? Your answer: C. The fish swam in a zigzag motion. Correct. Qualitative data describes qualities or characteristics, such as descriptions of behavior, shape, color, or other non-numerical attributes. In this case, zigzag motion describes the fish's movement without using numbers. Well done. You earn 1 point. Current score, 5 points. Let's move on to the next question. Question 8. Which of the following best describes the logic of hypothesis-based science? A. If I generate a testable hypothesis, tests and observations will support it. B. If my prediction is correct, it will lead to a testable hypothesis. C. If my observations are accurate, they will support my hypothesis. D. If my hypothesis is correct, I can expect certain test results. E. If my experiments are set up right, they will lead to a testable hypothesis. What's your answer? Your answer: B. If my prediction is correct, it will lead to a testable hypothesis. Not quite. This statement reverses the actual process. A testable hypothesis typically leads to predictions that can be tested. The correct answer is D. If my hypothesis is correct, I can expect certain test results. This describes the logic of hypothesis-based science, where a hypothesis is tested through experimentation, and the results either support or refute the hypothesis. You earn 0 points for this question. Current score, 5 points. Let's move on to the next question. Question 9. A controlled experiment is one that: A. Proceeds slowly enough that a scientist can make careful records of the results. B. May include experimental groups and control groups tested in parallel. C. Is repeated many times to make sure the results are accurate. D. Keeps all environmental variables constant. E. Is supervised by an experienced scientist. What's your answer? Your answer: B. May include experimental groups and control groups tested in parallel. Correct. A controlled experiment typically includes an experimental group, which receives the treatment or variable being tested, and a control group, which does not receive the treatment. By comparing the results between these groups, researchers can determine the effect of the variable being tested. Well done, you earn 1 point. Current score, 6 points. Let's move on to the next question. Question 10. Which of the following statements best distinguishes hypotheses from theories in science? A. Theories are hypotheses that have been proved. B. Hypotheses are guesses. Theories are correct answers. C. Hypotheses usually are relatively narrow in scope. Theories have broad explanatory power. D. Hypotheses and theories are essentially the same thing. E. Theories are proved true in all cases. Hypotheses are usually falsified by tests. Your answer? C. Hypotheses usually are relatively narrow in scope. Theories have broad explanatory power. Correct. A hypothesis is a specific, testable prediction that explains a phenomenon, whereas a theory is a well-substantiated, broad explanation for a set of phenomena. Theories are built upon a large body of evidence and can encompass multiple hypotheses. Current score, 7 points. You've completed the quiz. Let's review your results. You scored 7 out of 10, which is a great score. You demonstrated a solid understanding of biology concepts. Keep up the good work.